Like pretty much every genre out there, the story of how reggae came to be is both amazing and pretty long. And as it rose to prominence, it birthed a number of smaller genres and has influenced so many other styles since. At the same time, it's earned a bit of an undeserving reputation, so if you think that reggae is only about Bob Marley and pot, you need to get learned. Honestly, if all you know is Bob Marley's Legend album, first thing you need to do is go watch this video here to tell you why Bob Marley and reggae aren't all about stoners. There's so much to this genre to love, so get past that ignorance and then come back here and learn about the best of the genre. Reggae actually developed in the 1960s as this kind of offshoot or hybrid of ska and calypso, and the rocksteady sounds that were happening all over Jamaica at the time. Names like Jackie Mittoo and of course Lee Scratch Perry were vital in the early days and its continued success over the years. Artists like the Belltones and Larry Marshall were pretty much the first ones to do what we now know as reggae music. But a few years later, in about 1963, a group called the Wailers came into being, and the world has never been the same since. Within a decade, reggae was a worldwide sound, and everyone from Eric Clapton to Three Dog Night were playing reggae songs, and the Billboard charts started counting sales of reggae albums in about 1973. Most people also overlook the fact that the reggae scene had a massive impact on the UK punk scene in the late 70s. Bands like the Slits, the Ruts, and of course the Clash had huge influence coming into their sound from reggae, and a lot of them covered reggae songs regularly. The sounds of reggae are alive and well today, and here's a couple albums that'll serve as great entry points to one of my favorite sounds. First up, let's check out a soundtrack to the film The Harder They Come. Now, I know it's odd to start with a compilation or a soundtrack album, but the reality is this album served as the introduction to reggae for a majority of the world. And it's kind of a greatest hits album in its own unique way. Jimmy Smith, the Maytals, Desmond Decker, they all make appearances on this album. And if you're looking for a very basic starting point, this is actually a really good square one. Another good place to start is Lee Scratch Perry and the Upsetters album, Super 8. Now, it's hard to just pick one place in the Lee Perry catalog to start, but this to me is as good as anything. I mean, if for no other reason than the performance of Dread Lion, everybody has to have this album in its collection. That song to me is where you perfectly see the line between dub and reggae, and it explains so much about the music. The rhythms, the vocals, the horns, it's all here, and you'll quickly understand why Lee Scratch Perry remains such an icon to this day. Another great entry point is Screaming Target by Big Youth. If you want to understand the toasting style, which had a huge influence on hip-hop, this record is a great place to look to. Whether he's talking about education or raising your culture, or he's taking shots at slavery and the class system, this to me is one of the most wonderfully revolutionary albums ever. There's nothing holding back his words, and there's nothing holding back the grooves on this record. It's got a great bump to it, it's got a great aggression to it. This is kind of the other side of the reggae movement. If you want to know more about this album, I dedicated an entire video to it back in 2013. Go watch that there and laugh at how I look. The fourth entry point I have for you is the Wailers album, Catch a Fire. Look, you can't do reggae music without talking about Bob Marley. There's no question there. And while I was debating between Exodus and the Songs of Freedom box set, I just decided that this record is probably the best of all three for an entry point. Kinky Reggae, Concrete Jungle, No More Trouble, this is a bit of a greatest hits album onto itself. And it also happened to be their first release on the now legendary Island Records. I don't really think I need to say much about Bob Marley and the Wailers other than the fact that their best music is not found on Legend or the other greatest hits compilations. Dig deeper and understand why Bob Marley and his group were such icons, and a good place to start, Catch a Fire. Another album you have to know if you want to get into reggae is Funky Kingston by Toots and the Maytals. Yes, that is a cover of Louie Louie that you see on this album, and yes, that is a John Denver song also. Even without their amazing takes of these two songs, you have to know Toots and the Maytals if you want to know anything about reggae music. The title track is beyond iconic, and they approach the reggae sound like nobody else. They've just got this energy, this approach, this groove. It's so singular, you're gonna love it. And it really helps to show just how much sonic diversity you can get within a single sound. Now, the 1975 reissue of this album has a song called Pressure Drop, which, yes, if you're a fan of The Clash, it's the same song, and tons of other bands have covered it over the years because it's so good. Honestly, this record is just a gem through and through, and no music collection is complete without it. Now, if those records aren't enough for you, check out the Trojan box sets. I talk about them all the time. These are just a really great place to start because you've got so many different bands. You've got live cuts, you've got studio cuts. These are awesome. Check out the Trojan box sets. So those are just a few albums that are going to help you get to know the reggae style a little bit better. Jump down in the comments and let me know who your favorite reggae artists and what your favorite reggae albums are. Also, be sure to leave me a genre suggestion for the next episode of Entry Points. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook right here, and I'll see you guys again next time.